This podcast is intended for educational purposes only and is not intended to replace therapeutic services of any kind. Please refer to the list of references provided if you need support.
Hello and welcome to episode 4. I'm Ashley.
I'm Sara Cate.
Today we are going to be focusing on safety in your body, and especially when it's not safe to be in your body, why it might not be safe, and what that means or how it can feel and why it's okay.
Yeah, and to start, we wanted to bring in, obviously, both Ashley and I work with people's bodies and with healing modalities that focus on sensation in your body. And there often are times, or there's been experiences that have made it impossible for you to stay in your body. And we'll kind of talk about what dissociation is and when we have to click out of our actual physical and emotional worlds for safety and to be organized in a way where we are keeping ourselves protected. And sometimes that means that we don't actually get to be in our bodies.
Yeah. And let's back up a little bit, because sometimes when we dissociate, so dissociation is when you just remove yourself from your current present state. And so you might be aware of what's going on, but you're not actively able to participate in it in an emotionally available way. Is that how you want to describe it?
Yeah.
Okay. And you can kind of put your own interpretation on that too. Everybody thinks of it a little bit differently, but sometimes we do that out of protection and it is okay.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't to say that you have to, if you do dissociate, this isn't to say that that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's safe. And sometimes we're in situations where we need to make sure that we are safe. And so that is okay. What we're more referring to is if you are in a space where you want to maybe explore what it would be like to not be dissociated so much, or to be not dissociated in a situation that is safe, and you want to progress that relationship with yourself, that's where we're going.
Mm-hmm. And that'll kind of be, this will be a 2-part kind of episode. This first one about the reality of what it means if you can't arrive at home in your body, or if your body is notoriously not a safe space for you to be, and kind of what that looks like to renegotiate a little bit of that. And then next time we'll talk a lot more about the ways in which to start to participate with sensation in your body, how to track sensation, what those sensations can mean, how to work with them as they arise, mostly to help, I think, integrate that mind-body connection to feel more fully in control, more fully in your power. When your brain and your body can align, when they can communicate, even maybe not even align, but when they can communicate with each other, the ability to navigate situations and life experiences in a way that feels most supportive to you is increased. And so we have to, we wanted to be really aware and very trauma sensitive to the fact that we can talk about these sensations and we can talk about you being able to be in your body, but if that is not a possibility, we wanted to have this conversation first.
Yes.
To really normalize what Ashley was saying, that disassociation or disconnecting from your internal emotional physical experience oftentimes is a mechanism your nervous system and your body employ in a moment where it is not safe to be there. And sometimes that is an instigating event. And then maybe perhaps that becomes the loop, that becomes the pattern, right? Where you just kind of get stuck in this cycle of dissociation. Maybe let's say there was, I want to be a little careful here, but let's say there was, something that happened to you at some point in your life, in a partner relationship, let's say. And throughout the years in other partner relationships, you realize that when a certain kind of situation arises, all of a sudden you notice this dissociative pattern where you actually can't stay present for the conversation, or you can't stay present for whatever the experience is with a partner, because the original instigating event, your brain did this, your nervous system did this great thing and said, we're clicking out. We can't do this. This is too much. I'm overwhelmed. but then that becomes almost a loop. And
Mhm.
so recognizing where you might have these disassociative moments or these patterns or hooks of dissociation can be really helpful in your awareness of building just at least the possibility of coming back to your body at
Mhm.
some point, right? Not having to drop
Yeah.
in, not having to do this work. And again, we always say, like, this is not for everybody. If you find something triggering in this episode, please look at our list of resources, take care of yourself, disengage from this, because sometimes this information can be too much, because we are talking about trauma,
Mhm.
and trauma is a
Mhm.
generalized human experience.
Yeah.
So taking care of
Yeah.
yourself in this episode and in our next episode, really, and every time we talk, but
Yeah.
in every conversation we have, but just to be really conscious of what it is that you're experiencing as you listen to this. And if something feels like, oh my God, yes, that's what's been happening to me, I realize I kind of click out at this moment, you get to start to explore that.
Yeah.
That's just what we're doing, is
And
we're becoming
that's,
aware of it.
yeah. And that's really the invitation, is that there is a possibility to explore if and only if you want it.
Mhm.
I think it's really interesting to think about, like when we think about like our needs as a human, and those needs are, food and shelter, right? We need to be able to like be protected from the harsh elements, right? And we need to be able to eat food and drink water to like actually survive, right? And one of the things that I like to like think about and talk about with people is that we also have an innate need to connect to our physical body, right? And it starts from when we're a baby. And actually, when we're babies, if we are brought into the world in a safe space, we are connected to our bodies. Like if you watch a baby breathe, they are breathing fully. You see their whole chest expand.
Yeah.
They're not holding back. Again, all of this is coming from if they're in a safe space, right? They are not holding back when they're hungry, when they need you. They are presenting their needs and their wants and their like actual sense of themselves. And then we grow, and we unfortunately sometimes get messages that we need to hide some of that. And so just by maybe looking at yourself and these situations from a different standpoint of, oh, it's not my fault that I dissociate, right? Like it is not my fault. I was put in a situation, or I had these circumstances happen that I did nothing to do them. And it's okay that I dissociate. And there might be a new situation where I can connect in a little bit more.
Brilliant. So
Right.
that was just a really great linear process. Like what I just said. It was like, I was like, yes, this is how this should always be described.
Yes.
Right. It's these things happened to me.
Yes.
These responses, my dissociative response comes from the stimuli, the life experience. I'm aware of it, and it's okay because it's protective.
Yeah.
There's a protective quality to it. And then when I'm aware of it, how do I start to connect in other arenas or other parts of my body or other experiences that aren't consistent with this dissociative response here, right? So like you go to a benign kind of non intense or just a lower intensity connection to yourself rather than something that would be charged or triggered.
Yeah. So think of it. This is a very like, again, benign situation. So if you've ever thrown your headphones in and like gone for a run or to the gym or workout or whatever it is, right? We often do that to distract us from what our body is doing, right? We don't want to, or if you were in any kind of athletics and they're blaring the music while you're like running sprints, right? We do that to trick our mind into thinking about something else so that we're not focused on how much that sucks, right? I mean, we're not thinking about how much we need water, a break,
how much I hate running,
or that.
I listen to Hamilton.
Ooh.
while I run, because I need to not
Mhm.
be aware of what's my body's doing.
Wow.
So that's slightly dissociative.
Hamilton. But wow. Okay.
The nerd is real.
But it's so
good.
it is so
It's
good.
so good.
I just
It will
listened
never
to
not be amazing.
start to finish the other day, and I can sing every word.
Why haven't we done that together before?
We should. It's so good.
We promise we won't do that here.
Or will we?
Accurate.
But it's such a like a benign example, right? But that is an example of how you can be still present.
Yeah.
You can still be present in your practice or your workout class or whatever it is, but your brain is kind of somewhere else. So think of it like that. It's like you're still there, but you have this mechanism to like remove yourself, right?
Just to alleviate some of the aggressive or
Yes.
intense kind of feeling that's happening.
Yeah. And if you're like really curious on like if you like what you do during like a dissociated thing, think about situations like that first. Like Sarah said, like this isn't like go to like
The most triggering thing.
yeah, that's not going to be beneficial for anyone, regardless of whoever tells you that you have to like go into the feeling and feel it and sit with it. Like that is not what this is about. So kind of explore those situations where that's the case, like you are running or whatever, whatever it is. And then maybe just see if you can like just check in with your body. Like, what does this feel like? Doesn't mean you have to stay there if you're like hating the run or whatever, but just see what kind of thoughts go through your head, see what your body does, see if you can start to develop or start to notice any patterns just from a situation like that, right? Because all we're doing is we're just getting to know our bodies. And so if we come to our body in a non-threatening situation, it's going to be more apt to tell you something versus if we try to rush into that threatening situation and then say like, well, how are you feeling?
100%. And I think also like, I want to make sure that I'm bringing culture, gender, racial, societal, sexual orientation into this conversation to some degree, because every family system is unique and how you've been taught to either be in your body or not be in your body, or where you've not been able to, cross-culturally. That's true too. And so recognizing that, where I sit, I've had different conversations about my body and what safety is with my own body. And I know that other communities have to have very different conversations about how it is to, be in their bodies. So acknowledging that the perspective and the lens that we're speaking through is our own, and it might not be fully applicable to what it means to be safe in a body that's transgendered or a body of a different race, and really kind of focusing on your own discernment around that and saying that doesn't apply to me because, right? Like we only can know so far to our scope of what our lived experiences are and what people have shared with us. So I just wanted to put that in there to name that, like, we're trying to paint with a very broad scope what it means to be safe or unsafe, and the relationship people have to their body across the spectrum.
And I think because it is the importance of intersectionality that cannot be ignored. It is fact, right? It's not something that's just made up. And like we are speaking very broadly. And as you start to, if you choose to start to like kind of explore this and ask your body some questions, this is when support might be helpful, right? Because the questions or the things that I am moving through, I might need support at a different spot than Sarah or than the person next to me, right? And so we're each going to have our very own individual path, but the intersectionality of that, it's there, and we need to acknowledge it.
And I think it, in a way, like, then the good thing about starting to have these conversations, even just to bring awareness to the fact that like every lived experience by every human on this planet is going to be different. Yes, we can try as best we can, like to name a sensation or a feeling. Like I can say, this is how I experience anxiety in my body. And somebody can say like, oh yeah, it's similar. And it's also a little bit more like this. Like mine's a little bit more like sandpaper and yours is a little, and the other person's is a little bit more like, I don't know what. I had a really gross visual of a cheese grater, but like, like, you know, like really scratchy.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I'm with you.
because anxiety, to me, it's really scratchy. It's really sharp. It's really dry. It's really rough.
Anxiety for me is just like suffocating. Like I feel like I can't.
Right. And so we can say the term anxiety, but how it's going to show up and the nuance of it is specifically yours. Even if you're in a family unit, you're going to experience anxiety differently. Even if you're in a partnership, you two are, and you've like lived and journeyed together for a long time, it's still going to be different, right? Like mom to daughter, caregiver to child, like it is going to, you are going to have your own unique experience with this. And I think it's important to bring that in because again, what we say might not resonate and that's okay.
And that's like one of the beautiful things about this is this requires no one but yourself.
Yes.
Right? Like you don't need any external input to learn about your body because it is just you and it is just yours. And the fact that you are different than every single person on this planet is like, I mean, that sounds so cliche, but it is one of the most fascinating and beautiful and exciting things that there is. And it's like wild.
And it is, I think it's like a gift to know that like, yes, we have collective experiences. We need community. We heal in relationship. Like these things are real. Like we need resonance around us and we need support. And at the end of the day, your safety, your body, to Ashley's point, you get to own it. You get to say, I want to do this with it or not. This is what I feel, or this is what I feel. Right. And that you're acknowledging your own experience. You're acknowledging your own feeling, even if it's disassociation, even if it's like, I'm really clicked out of my body right now. I can't be here right now. Right. Like, this is too much for me. And being able to take care of yourself in that way of validating and acknowledging the experience that you are having with your body, even if it's not safe to be in it.
And then, sorry.
No, go ahead. Okay. It was a very long pause.
So I think too, then, you know, like we keep saying, like, it's okay if you are dissociating, and it's okay if you feel like you can't connect in. And I think that one of the things that I see happen is then it's like, people will be like, okay, give yourself grace, or like, you know, blah, 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 blah. And sometimes that grace looks like being angry about it, right? Like grace doesn't just mean being like roses and butterflies and like, oh,
self-love.
It's okay. Right? Sometimes the grace is saying, no, I'm angry about this. Maybe it might not even be that you're angry that you can't connect into your body, right? But like you're dissociated and something is making you feel a certain way. When we say that it's okay, we mean that it's okay to be in that moment what you are. Not that you have to then like try to just like return to a state of like peace and joy. That doesn't make any sense because there's a reason why your body is dissociating. And that's like when I said, you know, like when we were talking about like going in and feeling that feeling and like forcing yourself to feel it, like that's not, it's a dangerous road to start to travel down, right? It is just about, I don't know. Do you have anything else to say about that?
No,
I get so angry when I hear people say that then they have to like give themselves more grace. Well, yes, I hope that we all give ourselves grace, but also I hope that if you're angry about it, I hope that you say it.
Well, yeah, Ashley, you're making a really important distinction, which is to force yourself to feel a certain way is to not acknowledge and to not validate your own experience. And let's talk about attachment trauma, right? Let's talk about our childhood wounding or developmental trauma. Oftentimes it comes from a caregiver who's not attending to or acknowledging a child's needs, right? And so the initial experience is, I don't deserve, I'm not worthy of having my needs met. And so we become these adults that all of a sudden start to do the exact same thing to ourselves when we say, I can't be angry about this. I can't be sad about this. I can't be mad about this. Get over it. Move on. Be stronger. Be empowered. Blah, 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 blah. That like toxic positivity that is a toxic override.
Much more eloquently said.
No.
God bless
Because
her
but like
for being
oh my God. But here's the thing, your representation of the anger of it, I think, is really important because there is this in our field. I know there are a lot of therapists out there. There are a lot of really amazing therapists out there. And I know there's some really shitty therapists out there. And clients report to me all the time that they were told that they need to try this, need to do that, right? There's this like, you need to do this with yourself, with your body. And rather than just being like, what is it that you feel? What do you need to do about that? Right. And like to give you permission to say, I'm just really sick of my, this or this behavior, or I'm really frustrated by that. And then say, yeah, okay, yeah, I am. Thank you. Like, thank you, self, for acknowledging and admitting that, like, I don't feel great about this, or I don't love this, or I'm sick of being uncomfortable. And giving more of that permission to have like grace, and I would even say / compassion, like just compassion for the really difficult feelings that you might be feeling, compassion for the fact that, your body, and that doesn't mean you can be like, oh, I love you and I love this. No, it's like, we don't have to coddle it, but we can say, yeah, I'm mad about it and it sucks and I don't want to be, and I am. And it becomes a period at the end of that sentence rather than a qualification or a justification or some sort of need to change it. Yeah. Right. We give permission to like explore and be honest about what it is that you're feeling in your body.
Explore and be honest.
And that might be, I don't want to fucking do this. And that might be, I don't have the space to do this. Or that might be, no way. Like I have a couple clients that there is little to zero access to their internal world. And we start very simply with, what do we even notice in the room? What do we notice? Like we go into just kind of like, can you notice where you feel just even some warmth from the sun? Yeah. Right. Like we go very, very gently into that. And then that might be all we do for 6 months, because it is about your nervous system's desire and response and availability to feel safe enough to go do that. Yeah. And that is for no one but you.
And that that honesty is what's gonna clue you in to where you want to explore. The honesty is going to allow you to say like, yeah, I do want to like see what I notice in this room. The honesty, like being honest about where you're at and what you're feeling and in that moment is what's going to clue you into like, okay, I'm ready to explore this other space. Or, oh, when we were talking about this before, now I have such a different, perspective on it. Now I want to talk about it from like a different lens or from like a different like looking in point, but without the honesty, and the honesty comes from the exploration, because we often don't know where to start. It's not about where to start. There's no like magic spot. It's just about exploring. And as you explore, you start to gain more signals that are going to come from your body, right? And those signals are coming because your body is learning trust from you just saying, I want to figure out like what I'm sensing in this room, the different textures, whatever it is, the different lights that are coming in. So your body's like, oh, okay, that's safe. We can talk about that. you know, and we can see the different things. We can like tactilely feel the different textures that are in the room. And pretty soon that translates into, oh, I can feel the different parts of my body. It might be like, I can differentiate my right shoulder from my left. It could be so simple, right? But it's all it's one step in front of the other.
Yeah. And just to like honor where your body is at in that process is, again, a renegotiation of trauma. To not push your body, to not force your body, to not override something, to just really allow it to be slow and windy as you renegotiate. And you know, like I use the word reclamation a lot in my practice, like reclaiming what was always yours to own, which was your body, but all of the reasons why we've had to self-abandon, why we've had to leave ourselves. And so there is a lot of walking back to ourselves that we do when we decide to kind of embark on the work of coming back to your own body. But I just think like, even like subtle awarenesses, as Ashley was saying, these like little cues of where there's a yes and where there's a no in your system, of like curiosity, of interest, of like, I wonder what that is, rather than being like, oh God, I feel that. Oh God, it's probably this. And then we go into the anxiety of it, but kind of just staying with that curiosity of like, what is that? Or what is that? What do I notice there? And then what happens next when I just notice it, rather than trying to change it or adjust it or repress it, whatever it might be. And that takes time to develop. It takes time to establish that pacing and not feeling like you're going to go into a vortex if you do. But it really is like, I mean, something like I had a client a while back, had sexual assault history, and there was not a lot of availability for tracking of sensation in her body. Justified, absolutely makes sense, right? And the farthest we got in about a year's worth of really slow supported work was, at one point she looked down at her hands and she could feel her hands connecting to her legs. And she noticed how the color of her nail bed. And she was so interested in, wow, I just, I've never really noticed kind of how pink my nail bed was. And for both of us, like, she kind of like looked up at me with these gorgeous tears in her eyes of just like, oh my gosh, I can notice this part of me that I have never seen before. And that is the work, right? Like, it is not,
Ashley's gonna cry.
I know. Like, it's the work. It's the work of being like, here's one new piece of information that I have about me that I have never had access to. And it isn't, it isn't some, really deep intuitive sensing, which I don't mean to make fun of, like that kind of like, oh, I can just feel so much in my body. Like, that's, yes, it would be great if we could all get there. And that availability is not there for everybody. So just noticing one little thing is like, oh my God, revolutionary.
Yes. And I think, like she mentioned patience, which, like, sometimes if you tell me to be patient, I'm going to tell you.
I mean, I have none.
Right.
With my clients,
However,
I'm endless, but for some reason with myself, zero.
So think of it this way. Think of patience. I mean, you can use the word patience if you want, but you can't just all of a sudden expect yourself to be an expert on yourself if this is day one of your curiosity, right? Like any new thing you learn, right? Like whatever it is, how to draw, like something so, I don't know, anything, right? You're not an expert on day one. You can't be. There's no way. It's impossible. It is impossible for you to immediately become an expert on your body and to have that deep intuitive knowing, like Sara just mentioned, right? And so patience is just you learning the skill of talking to your body and listening, right? There's like two parts of this, right? And so we can't expect, we just can't expect ourselves to move through that quickly. We're all going to move at different paces. But I think that that's like an important thing of like, we just can't expect to be experts right away.
And it really is all, just to kind of elongate that conversation a little bit, the patient with yourself, but like also finding somebody to support you in that also has the same awareness and understanding. Like, when we work with clinicians who don't understand, right, and like it's out of their scope, or you find that they don't align with the pace that you want to work, that you don't have to continue that dynamic, that relationship.
And it doesn't mean that they're a bad practitioner,
right?
It just, I mean, it's like why you get along with certain people better than others, right? We are not everybody's cup of tea. We're not supposed to be, right? And so that doesn't mean, even if the practitioner sitting in front of you is plenty nice and kind and genuinely wants to help, they probably do. They're in that profession, something along the line made them want to help people, right? So it doesn't mean that you're just saying like, F you, you're a terrible person. You're just saying, I need something else. And does it sometimes suck when that happens? 100%.
And it can feel really exhausting trying to find the right people. I know that's something that clients share with me a lot, is just, and like even, people, my friends and family who I try to support in getting therapists, like it takes a while, and therapists, chiropractors, PTs, like across the board, right? To find people that align with you. And if it's been hard to understand what you need in your life historically, then it is sometimes hard to navigate who the right person for you is.
Cedar's joining us.
My dog just came in.
She's so sweet.
And she was digging, which is not okay.
That's all right.
Talk about finding patience. But to notice, like, again, just those like little subtle things of like, I just don't really feel like we're communicating clearly about this, or I feel like I'm being pushed beyond what I'm ready for, or I just feel that no. Like I always say, like, do you notice yourself leaning towards it or moving away from it? And just trusting that. And again, that's just an easy, subtle way to start to play with, like, you could do it with like a coffee. Like I've had way too much today, right? And Ashley brought me another one, and I could have I watched my body lean all the way towards it. So I just went for it. But like just those, it's like, it's a silly little thing. It's coffee, but it's a great way to practice. Like, do I want this? And then once you start paying attention to those little things that don't really create a lot of stir or discomfort in your system and in your body, then you can go towards those bigger things of like, who do I want to work with? How do I want to work? Do I want to work on my body, or do I want to start with this part of me? Like, it's an evolution. And again, like if you have not found it possible to listen or to be connected to that part of you that needs to explore and discover, it is hard to figure this out and discern what to do. So again, that's where that patience and just like, okay, I have to start somewhere.
So the most important things that we want you to get from this is, one, that we dissociate for a reason. And sometimes we need to dissociate to keep us safe. And it is not a bad thing if you dissociate. I think number 2 is that if you want to explore, you are free to do so. You don't need permission. You don't need anybody else's validation. You can choose to explore where it feels accessible first, right? And so we gave some very, like, we use coffee, we use exercise, like we use some very simple examples. But when you are starting this, they're really awesome places to start, just because you can have success with them, right? Like you can have success if you tell yourself, yes, I want a coffee or not, right? It's a successful thing. So starting there. And then, I think maybe another really important thing to remind everybody of is that it's it's patience, yes, but it's like not assuming that you can immediately become an expert if you're just starting to talk to yourself. It's like, I wouldn't, well, maybe with you, I would just like come up to Sarah and like give her my whole life story within 35 seconds of meeting her. I maybe did.
No, you did. Well, I was actually her client, and talking about intuition, I was like, I'm gonna be friends with her. Like immediately when I met her, I was
Couldn't
like,
get rid of her.
gonna be friends. She couldn't. She's like, can you
kidding.
leave?
I'm just
Can
kidding.
you leave? This session has been over for an hour.
She'd walk out and I'd be like,
And so, but I did. But I also, I definitely, I wanted to know your life story.
Well,
because I wanted to be friends.
yeah.
So there was that.
But, you know, like when you walk up to a stranger, or if you're just building a relationship with someone,
You don't give them all.
right? You don't go there right away. There's like a hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Right? That's all. That's what we're starting with. It's
So
like
good
a
at
hi, how are you? And then you get to decide, right? Like there are certain conversations that become more comfortable before others. And that's where we're going. We're going down that road. And if that road becomes like, ooh, maybe can't go that way anymore, then we go to the next easy place to go to.
Yeah, I like that.
Hi,
how are you?
Hi, how are you? That is the name of this episode. Hi.
Hi, how are you? Sessions with Sara Cate Ashley. Yeah, no, I think that really sums it up so perfectly. To give just the permission to be where you are with this entire process. And if you decide you want to explore, definitely tune in to the next episode, because we will be talking about how to start to notice, track, and work with sensations in your body. And, you know, we'll give you the framework. And again, you get to use it for however you feel ready to. There's going to be some handouts. So those will be posted somewhere in this world I'm not familiar with yet.
Show notes.
Show notes. We're getting more and more legit every moment of this thing. But yeah, to have tangible tools for you to start to work with this, and to have it feel possible.
Yes.
To feel like I can maybe start a conversation with my body. Because Ashley and I we're so passionate as providers and professionals in this field. We're so passionate about facilitating and supporting that conversation between someone and their body, and them finding agency and embodiment and all these buzzwords, especially in like the healing arts community, to find the ability to be with themselves more and to know themselves more. And I mean, I'm on that journey myself too. I work with a somatic practitioner. Like I have been in difficult and exploratory conversations with my body for years. And I came from a practice of like feeling really embodied, because I practiced yoga. And so that to me told me I knew what was happening in my body. It did to a point, but I was actually using yoga as a way to bypass a lot of the sensations I was having in my body and the feelings I was having in my body. And so I had to really renegotiate this story that I had in my head, that I was like so attuned and I was so aware and I was so present. No, I fucking wasn't. I was not. I was I was dissociated, and I was bypassing constantly. And so, you know, my discovery of trauma sensitive yoga and that work around really allowing a person to be in charge and in control of what they're doing with their body by noticing what they want and what they need, is such a big part of the work that I do, and the framework for me as a professional, but also me as a person in the world of like, do I want to do that? No, I don't. That doesn't feel good right now. That doesn't feel supportive right now. And being able to track that awareness. So we'll really develop that as we continue our conversations, but just it is
so funny that you like brought up yoga, because I credit Pilates to helping me physically get in my body. And I believe that 100%, where before it was like kind of the example I gave of like, let's blast this music so I don't think about it and then I'm done. And then I started taking Pilates, and then I started like learning like Pilates, like the art behind Pilates. And I remember like moving my hips and being like, oh, well, I don't know that I've ever like felt myself move so deeply. And I was jacked. I was like, fuck yeah. Oh,
We said we could do that.
Okay.
That was the rule in the first.
Oh, yeah.
We
Okay.
we set the ground rule
Yeah.
of this
You're right.
these episodes that we get
You're
to say the F word.
I forgot. So, but I was like so jacked. And then what happened was my body was like, okay, so you're a little bit in your body. Now we're going to give you like a little bit more. And that scared the hell out of me. And so then I like ran the other direction because I was like, I can't do that. That's too much. That's too much, too soon, too fast. Trauma, right? Too much, too soon, too fast. So it's such a journey. And you'll be surprised at what types of things open up the door.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be surprised at what type of things close the door.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay, but that's the exploration,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you don't have to fully believe. Just hang on to the idea that there's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Curiosity and possibility.
Yeah.
That should be the name of the episode.
Okay.
I think it's gonna have 6 names.
Not hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Okay. Well, thanks for hanging with us.
Yeah, thanks for enduring the conversation. If you listened to the whole thing.
Yes. And we'll see ya.
We'll see you next
Next time.
time. Session next 5.
Bye. Oh, stop.